The Wechtershall Private School was abuzz with rumors about the enchanting Lady Aisulyn Laverne Suit, a member of the esteemed student council. She was hailed as the epitome of perfection, not just for her stunning looks but also for her prestigious lineage as a member of the wealthy Duke family. However, whispers of a different nature began to circulate. Some claimed that behind her beauty, Aisulyn was a greedy and arrogant individual, even comparing her to a pig in terms of her physique. Aisulyn, upon hearing these rumors, was outraged and vehemently denied their validity. Actually, Aisulyn was not always the flawless beauty she was believed to be. In reality, she was a plump girl, the eldest daughter of the Duke of Laverne. She is plagued by poor health. To make matters worse, she played the role of the villain in a popular game called Fantasia Attraction. It was no surprise that the protagonist, who had entered a dating simulator, struggled to connect with her character and progress in the game. The game presented numerous challenging endings, making it difficult for players to uncover the true reasons behind its complexity. The game's primary setting was a prestigious private school known as Wechtershall, catering to brilliant minds. Each semester, students faced rigorous exams, and failing meant having to retake them in an additional test. Those who couldn't pass were expelled from the school. Moreover, if students neglected their romantic pursuits, their scores would suffer, limiting their options for dating within the game. If their sympathy scores plummeted, a tragic ending known as the beginning of poverty awaited them. On the other hand, focusing solely on character growth made it impossible to accumulate enough empathy points. The game's difficulty was no laughing matter. At the conclusion, the ability to serve emerged, but unfortunately, the game could end before the user could delve into the game's captivating storyline. The protagonist, a regular gamer, after countless tries managed to strike a balance between dating and character growth within the game. However, upon entering this world, she discovered that it was an exact replica of their favorite game, complete with the existence of the enigmatic private school Hydras. The kingdom's name and the characters' names were meticulously aligned with the game, adding to the surreal experience. However, there was a significant predicament. The girl had somehow possessed one of the game's bosses, Aisulyn herself. This revelation was disheartening, as the negative characters in this game differed from those in other magical simulations. They were not confined to textbooks or limited to mere mischief. Instead, their actions posed real-life threats. While the main characters slept, they could be strangled with magic, kidnapped, or even burned to ashes. The game was filled with numerous unfavorable outcomes, and if the protagonist failed to develop their character adequately, they could meet their demise during pivotal events. This unique aspect of the fantasy game's allure was the presence of formidable villains. Among them were weaker adversaries who vanished midway through the game, as well as bosses who emerged at the end, relentlessly attempting to eliminate the main characters. The first villain encountered was Rudin, the Crown Prince of Light, a seemingly innocent and attractive blonde boy who harbored a sinister nature. The second villain was known as the Messenger of Darkness, whose appearance perfectly matched his title, with hair and eyes that exuded an aura of darkness. Lastly, there was Iron Lady Aisulyn, the remaining villain, who proved to be a source of trouble for the girl who had unwittingly become a part of this game. Aisulyn stood at an imposing height of 170 centimeters and weighed a staggering 170 kilograms, perfectly proportionate in size. She had a laundry list of health issues: high blood pressure, moderate diabetes, hyperlipidemia, a herniated disc in her cervical spine, and 12 other diseases. In some scenarios she passed away due to suffocation caused by sleep apnea, and more. All of these ailments were a result of her obesity. Despite spending her entire life in the hospital, she had managed to survive. But now, inhabiting the body of a villain who had yet to grow up, she had a chance to change her fate. She still had time to transform her body and improve her health. Losing weight was the key, and that meant eating less. She made a bold declaration to her maid, stating that she would no longer indulge in her morning snack. She was determined to cut out all those sweets. The maid, however, found it hard to believe. She thought that the lady simply didn't want to eat. But when the protagonist mentioned going on a diet, the maid was taken aback. She assumed that the girl wanted to use the diet as an excuse to fire all the staff. She was convinced that the protagonist would pretend to lose weight for 3 days, and then when no progress was made, she would dismiss everyone, including the cooks and servants. It wasn't fair, but that's what the maid believed. Little did she know, the protagonist had a different plan in mind. The protagonist started her day with a vigorous run around the garden. It was hard work, especially considering her weak and overweight body. In fact, her current body was even weaker than the one she had in her past life, spent entirely in the hospital. But just as she was contemplating her next move, she heard someone calling her name. Curious, she turned around to see who it was. Her parents were extremely concerned when they discovered that their daughter had made the sudden decision to go on a diet. Her father insisted that she was not overweight at all, and on the contrary, she needed to gain some weight. Her mother, upon learning that her daughter had hardly eaten anything that morning, burst into tears, fearing that her daughter would starve herself to death. It was all quite absurd, really. After all, while it was true that her health could be improved, her parents failed to notice this. Aisulin made it clear to them that she was determined to lose weight, regardless of what they said. She even went as far as to threaten that if they tried to stop her, she would never eat at the same table with them again. This took her parents by surprise and left them upset. Eventually, her father realized that she was serious about her decision. However, during a conversation with her parents, Aisulin's father suggested that she meet the son of the Appleton family, who was around her age. He hoped that by introducing her to a new companion, she would be distracted from her diet. Aisulin considered the idea, as she had always longed for friends in her past life. She happily accepted the offer without suspecting her father's ulterior motive and eagerly asked when she could meet him. Her father was pleased that she had agreed, but little did she know that his plan was to receive the party's invitation to dinner and make his daughter eat a proper meal. When the day of the reception arrived, Aisulin found herself alone with a boy. However, to her shock, the first words that came out of his mouth were calling her a pig. Aisulin happiness quickly turned to disappointment when she discovered that the person she was supposed to befriend during her visit to the Marquis was someone she least expected. Riding in the carriage with her father and the Marquis of Appleton himself, Aisulin had assumed that she would be friends with his son. However, she soon realized that it wasn't an easy task. As she attempts to engage in conversation, he tells her no to speak to him. Aisulin could barely control her anger. Juven, who was known for his arrogance and pompous demeanor, made derogatory remarks about Aisulin. It was clear that he held a position of disdain towards those he considered beneath him. She remembered that the boss, Juven Appleton, who openly displayed his displeasure towards others, even insulting Aslan herself. During their visit, a lavish table was set with delectable dishes that tempted Aisulin's taste buds. She struggled to contain her excitement as she looked at the mouthwatering spread before her. However, she knew she had to exercise self-control and not indulge in everything. Despite her efforts, her father encouraged her to eat heartily, proud of her healthy appetite. Aisulin, on the other hand, felt frustrated and angry with herself for not being able to resist the temptation. To make matters worse, Juven, who was also seated at the table, noticed Aisulin's lack of control and likened her to a pig. She couldn't help but feel defeated, realizing that she had completely lost control over her eating habits. Afterwards, it had been 4 days since they arrived at the Appleton estate. In an attempt to make up for it, she repented and exercised vigorously to burn off the extra calories. She ate, she ran, she ate and ran, that became her routine. However, despite her efforts, Aisulin's weight remained unchanged. In fact, it seemed to have gotten worse, even though she went for a run every morning. She couldn't let herself be defeated by delicious temptations. She couldn't even get angry with her father in front of other adults, thinking about her own future. She knew he had to leave this place as soon as possible. She tried to befriend Juven, but he constantly ignored her. It was very different from what she had experienced in the game. Now she realized that when he was collecting a pile of books, it was a struggle for him. Aisulin wondered if something happened to him. She decided to approach him, smiling and greeting him, hoping to start a conversation. However, the boy only glanced at her for a few seconds before returning to his book, completely ignoring her. Aisulin, of course, didn't appreciate being disregarded so easily. She noticed a book he was reading, so she proposed a friendly fight with him. However, Aslan realized that the book he was reading was actually about lethal techniques using just a finger. This revelation prompted her to search for a book on basic magic in the library. She believed that understanding magic would help her control his opponents, especially the strong and powerful individuals of their time. Seeing his books fill with learning about strength, it seemed that he was slowly transforming into a power-hungry monster. This realization shattered Asulin's dream of a peaceful college life. As they fought, Anna looked at Jawan with a mix of pity and confusion. She couldn't comprehend how a boy like him could turn into such a monster. Despite his protests, she pinned him down and urged him to calm down. In that moment, Asulin couldn't help but think about the importance of early education. She remembered that Juven's mother had passed away, and felt a deep sympathy for Juven. She gently patted his head, trying to comfort him, even though he continued to yell at her. Juven's mother had been sickly and weak after giving birth to him. Her condition only worsened over time until she eventually passed away. He had been a normal, polite child who loved his mother dearly. But after her death, something changed. The innocent smile that once adorned Juven's face vanished, replaced by the darkness that now consumed him. Perhaps Juven's mother's death was the catalyst for his transformation into the villainous figure he had become. Lost in her thoughts, Anna paused for a moment before happily informing Jawan that she would be his older sister. However, Jawan remained negative towards her and questioned why he needed a sister who was as fat as a pig. Surprisingly, Asulin wasn't offended by his words. She caressed his head and delivered a message. She wanted him to understand that since he had lost to her, he should acknowledge the principle of survival of the fittest and obey her. Juven began to shout, claiming that he hadn't lost yet. She then flipped him onto his back and told him to relax because she wasn't going to hit him. Instead, she used a different approach and started tickling him immediately. Juven burst into laughter and even shed a few tears. He pleaded for her to stop, but Asulin refused until Juven admitted defeat. This playful exchange went on for a while until the young man couldn't bear it any longer and surrendered. Even then, Asulin continued to tickle him for a little while. The servants at the door overheard the young master's laughter and were overjoyed for him. Believing that he was delighted by his friend's presence, in the garden Asulin pointed out the beautiful blue roses, but Juven continued to ignore her. Frustrated, she asked if he wanted her to make him laugh again. Asulin replied that he should now address her as his big sister and show respect to his elders. Juven interjected loudly, claiming that she couldn't be his older sister because there was no one as unpleasant as her. She remarked on the beauty of the surroundings. As he glanced around, he couldn't help but notice the abundance of exquisite flowers. This revelation left Juven utterly astonished. Turning away, he exclaimed that she was the first to describe these flowers as beautiful. However, Asulin couldn't comprehend why. They were stunning, yet no one had mentioned it before. Her words deeply touched Juven, causing a slight blush to appear on his cheeks. Juven proceeded to explain what had transpired. When the magical distortion first occurred, it was a tale of ferocious monsters and numerous human casualties. Some survivors claimed that, as a result of this dreadful event, a blue rose had emerged. Consequently, no one liked it because the appearance of the monster was unpredictable. With a slight turn of his head, he asked her if she genuinely believed that this rose was beautiful. In response, she wore a pained expression, stating she doesn't want to hate beautiful things because of words. Juven interjected, saying that everyone despised those roses, despite the fact that his mother had planted them. It all stemmed from a single incident when she was pregnant with him. The Marquis had to make a choice between saving his spouse or his son, and by hesitating, he risked losing them both. However, a miracle occurred that nobody expected. Embracing her newborn son, she declared their intention to plant blue roses in the garden. Even though people warned them that these roses brought bad luck, she firmly believed that the blue rose symbolized the miracle that had saved their lives. It was peculiar that a flower considered ominous by many could represent a miracle. After this incident, the couple discovered the true meaning behind the blue rose, and their home began to be adorned with these flowers. Perhaps it was a miracle that manifested when one desired to conquer their worries and doubts. That's why the blue roses painted the Applin farm naturally. No one was pleased with this change as everyone was well aware of the history behind this flower and the notorious bad luck associated with the blue rose. People would praise its beauty when he's around, but deep down he knew they dislike it. However, he realized the sincerity in her appreciation and thanked her wholeheartedly. It has been a month since she arrived at the Marquis of Appleton's estate, and today marks her final day. She wonders if he will feel any regret, although he himself claims not to care. Regardless, she plans to have a great time playing a lot. To her surprise, she finds only the maid in the library, as opposed to the usual bookworm. The maid informs her that the young master has gone to the hill in the backyard, where his mother is buried. Coincidentally, it is also his mother's birthday, so he decides to bring a bouquet of blue roses, her favorite flowers, as a tribute. As he ascends the hill, he feels a strange presence calling out to him, but dismisses it as his imagination. Meanwhile, Asula struggles to climb the hill, finding it much more challenging than anticipated. Despite her recent weight gain, she pushes forward, determined to reach her destination. Just when she is about to give up, she spots a bouquet of blue roses directly in her path, causing her to hesitate in shock. She felt something had happened to Juven, causing her to drop the stick she was leaning on and run towards him. There, she saw a huge monster next to Juven, who was scared. Aslan couldn't understand where the monster came from, but what was even more important was the fact that it was about to attack Juven. He sat there frozen in fear. Without hesitation, Asula quickly ran towards Juven and covered him with herself just as the monster attacked. Asula had a thought that if the monster got rid of Juven now, maybe some of the future problems would disappear. However, her body reacted faster than her thoughts. There was a reason for that. In the future, Juven would become the boss, but in the time they had spent together, Juven had become her brother, so now, she was determined to protect him. After the monster's attack, Asulan was still conscious and with her last strength, she told Juven to run away as she couldn't run anymore. Juven held her in his arms and was shocked at how she wasn't afraid. Despite being weak, he remembered his mother's words before she passed away: he had to be strong. Even without his mother around, he overheard the maid saying she wouldn't have passed on if she didn't give birth, and blame him for her passing. Juven understood the importance of being strong in mind, body, and soul. It was easy training his body was easy, strengthening his heart proved to be a challenge. No matter how many books he read or how much he pondered, he couldn't find an answer. He spent 6 months in these efforts until Asula came along. At first, he thought she was a fat pig with a weak will, but it was clear that appearances could be deceiving. How could she react so bravely in this situation, even though he was afraid? It was a mystery to Juven. Then, a sudden realization hit him. He vividly remembered his mother's wise words and the advice given by Asulan. It dawned on him that she was not weak at all, but rather incredibly strong. She had shown immense courage by sacrificing her own life for the sake of a loved one. It was a strength that he lacked. In that moment, he acknowledged that she was stronger than him, even though she was currently asleep. Grateful for her act of saving him, he silently thanked her and extended his hand towards the monster. It froze. Purple liquid came from its mouth. Suddenly it shrank and crushed by Juven. Without her, he would be a stranger. When facing the monster, he cursed himself. What helped him escape that madness was her. They made their way back home. Juven bid farewell to her with a beaming smile on his face, no longer hesitant to call her sister. Asulan was overjoyed to hear his acceptance and see his smile. He mentioned that he would visit her soon and bid his final goodbye. However, just as she turned to leave, he stopped her once again and curiously asked about her type. She pondered over this unexpected question. Images of muscular and strong men flashed through her mind, but she knew she couldn't reveal that to him. Instead, she replied that she preferred gentlemen, cheerful and polite men. Juven declared that he would definitely be like that, which brought a smile to her face. They bid farewell. Magic box. The pain of growing up in this world came naturally at the age of 13. They say people would have to be sick for more than a week. It was around when Asula was 11. But it was too early. She is to suffer intense magical pain for 2 hours and called a genius. In terms of talent, it's the same as legends. At the end of the pain, she will really become Asulan. She then informed her surprised father about her newfound magic powers, as he hadn't realized she had a fever. She mentioned that everything happened quickly after a few hours. Her dad was joyful as he embraced her and spun her around in happiness. However, Asulan's happiness seemed to fade away because she now realized that this world was not all sunshine and rainbows. There were monsters lurking and a dangerous magical power at play. She hid the magical box to live a normal life, but learning magic beforehand is probably a good thing. Her father planned to test Asulan's magical attribute. He brought out a crystal ball and asked Asulin to place her hand on it. The orb emitted a bright light, revealing that Asulin's magic had a strengthening property. Her father wasted no time in finding a teacher for her, and to her surprise, it was none other than her favorite character, Bertand Suman. She couldn't believe her luck, but she also felt a bit nervous in front of her new teacher. She eagerly awaited the start of her lessons. The teacher was pleased to see her determination. However, Bertand carefully examined her body and informed her that she weighed 38 kilograms as she was overweight for her height of 136 centimeters. Despite Asulin's impressive physical abilities, her body couldn't keep up. So, the first step was to start a diet. Her father, who was nearby, wasn't pleased with this suggestion and tried to pressure Bertrand, but the teacher remained firm in his decision. He sensed that the location was unsuitable for dieting. Despite the Duke's intense gaze, he assured her that if she studied well, it would only be challenging at first. Once she mastered the enhancement magic, 90% of her calories would convert into mana, allowing her to eat as much as she desired without gaining weight. Not only would the enhancement magic strengthen her body, but it would also make it flawlessly perfect. She was thrilled by this revelation and expressed her eagerness to start learning magic immediately. Her teacher warned her that the process would be excruciating, involving painful destruction and muscle reconstruction. From that moment on, her training became incredibly grueling. She ran for more than 10 hours, engaged in push-ups and rock climbing, all while her teacher provided encouragement. Additionally, her teacher found a liquid that was supposed to aid her in the process, although it tasted so repulsive that she couldn't bear to swallow it and spat it out. However, she soon realized that she would have to drink the liquid 4 times a day instead of eating. Despite her surprise, Asulin's commitment impressed her teacher, as she didn't flee like his previous students. This meant that he could help her maximize her abilities and transform her into not only the best in the country but also the strongest in history. After just 1 month, she could effortlessly perform 200 push-ups in just 2 minutes. Naturally, her teacher was overjoyed with this remarkable progress, and she herself became significantly stronger and excelled in sports. The noticeable weight loss within a month was a testament to her dedication and hard work. She had overcome her fear of these activities and now she was even healthier than before. At that moment Juven was on his way to visit her. Without knowing that she had improved so much, he tells his father that he wanted to see her surprised face, while blushing. Meanwhile, Asulin was struggling with her practice because they had added more weight to her. Now, her push-ups involved the teacher sitting on top of her. She still found it very challenging, but she continued to try. The teacher acted as if he wasn't surprised that she could handle it. Bertrand had gained a significant amount of weight due to weight gain magic. He was now well beyond the weight they began with of 120 kilograms, but now it's 700 pounds. He could barely do a push-up under such weight, but she still managed to do it. Asulin couldn't bear the weight any longer and ended up collapsing on the floor, with the teacher still sitting on top of her. Juven witnessed the entire situation and dropped the bouquet in shock. He became angry with Bertrand. The teacher got off Asulin, but Juven angrily demanded to know what Bertrand had done to her. The air was filled with the boy's anger, and Bertrand tried to assure him that everything was fine and that there had been a misunderstanding. Juven attacked Bertrand with dark magic. The teacher couldn't help but wonder if the child was the Marquis' son, but he couldn't understand why he was using spells against him. Suddenly, he remembered hearing Juven scream "sister." He asked if he's the person Aslan has been talking about. Juven then stopped attacking. His deadly aura turned into puppy love when he realized she talked about him. Bertrand then explained that he was her teacher and that they often chat together after class, which is how he knew about him. However, now he understood that their relationship was more than just friendship. He had feelings for her, otherwise, he wouldn't have approached her with a bouquet of flowers, but actually, she had never mentioned anything to Juven. However, Bertrand was confident, so he decided to playfully tease him a little. It was easy to deceive a boy in love and divert his attention towards someone like Bertrand. He needed to keep him away from the girl who lay unconscious. Furthermore, Bertrand had to find a way out of the situation, but he couldn't engage in a serious fight with the boy. He began to tell Juven what Asulin had been saying and boasting about having a sweet and kind little brother, almost like an angel. The boy became upset, confirming that it was true because he was her only and very fragile brother. With a reassuring tone, He mentioned that he also believed that Juven would grow up to be a strong and confident man. It seemed like a prediction for his future. He noticed how freely she spoke about how cute Juven was, and perhaps she hadn't fully admitted to herself that she liked him yet. However, when Juven heard this, he became embarrassed and looked away. He appreciated the fact that she genuinely cared about him. He stated that her training is too harsh. Bertrand explained that there was no other way because she needed rigorous training to master strengthening magic. Due to the properties of her magical talent, not receiving proper training could lead to serious illness. Bertrand reminded Juven not to share what he had just heard with anyone, as it was a secret. If Asulin found out, she would be embarrassed and might stop talking to her teacher about him. Without anyone to confide in, Asulin's interest might fade. Juven promised to keep it a secret and not tell anyone. The teacher thought that a little white lie wouldn't hurt anyone, but he didn't realize that this conversation would ignite his true love for Asulin. As the summer quickly passed and the fall arrived, Asulin finally reached a normal weight for her height, weighing 33 kilograms. This brought her immense happiness, as she no longer had to worry about her weight. Despite not gaining much muscle despite her training, Asulin still felt fit. It was a bit strange, but her physical strength had become extraordinary. Juven gazed at her in awe. As she had mentioned earlier, despite everything, he took pride in discovering his magical abilities 4 months ago. Juven possessed untapped potential, even surpassing his current strength. He had transformed into a good-hearted individual, perhaps evading the path of becoming a villain and saving the world from a bleak future. However, there was a secret. Unbeknownst to her, Juven was not the innocent and kind boy he appeared to be. He merely pretended to be nice, following the guidance of his teacher, Bertrand. Bertrand advised Juven to showcase his magical skills to Asulin, as it would serve as his weapon. However, he needed to conceal his true power, as it would seem peculiar with his charming appearance. Disharmony would hinder his attractiveness, so Juven had to appeal to Asulin's maternal instincts with a cute and harmless facade. In essence, he had to feign weakness, and when he grew older and taller than her, he could reveal his true strength. This unexpected revelation would change her perception of him, transforming their relationship from that of siblings to that of lovers. It was a complicated plan, but in matters of love, timing is crucial. For now, it was best for Juven to assume the role of a sweet and harmless boy, allowing Asulin to protect him. After that he sees her looking in the mirror, he assured her that she didn't need a mirror, as she was naturally beautiful. He emphasized that even if she gained weight, her beauty would remain intact.